You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 117. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Hello there and welcome. We are so excited to have you here with us today, as always. So to start off, I just want to ask, how are you? Really, how are you? This is a year like no other, and I've got to tell you, I am going through so many ranges of emotions, so much learning, so much reminding myself to have a growth mindset. It has been a year already full of really crazy challenges, but I've kind of been loving the fact that this year is pushing me totally out of my comfort zone and getting me to try new things, but also reminding me that I can't do it all. So the other day I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the things, and I was sitting in meditation in the morning before I started my school day. And this thought came to me, this idea came to me, this feeling came to me, and it was enough is enough. Enough is enough. And that meant to me in some ways doing enough is enough for now. I can't do all the things. I can't be perfect at this blended distance and in-person learning yet. And that's okay. That's enough. I'm doing enough. And that enough is enough that came to me also was speaking to kind of the voice in my head that was judging me for not being farther along in the journey, not having it all figured out yet. And it was just this moment that I had the reminder of, okay, Kaylee, enough is enough. Good enough is good enough for now. Always striving to learn and improve the situation for my students, improve their learning, improve our connection, and all those things. But I can only move through experience. I can't know how to do everything right yet. I need to just take one step at a time, and from each step, learn something new and use that to inform my next step. So I just wanted to share that with you because it felt really important to me when it came to me. And I've been really practicing having self-compassion when my mind wants to judge me for not being perfect at this yet or ever. You know, we can never be perfect at teaching. It's not a checkbox job. It is something that requires us to adjust and adapt and change on the fly and to just do the best we can with a big open heart. So I'm reminding myself every morning to have compassion for myself and to just go into the day with an open heart, ready to connect with my students and just be what I can be for them in that day. So I've really been focusing on connection with my students this year. We have been practicing mindfulness every day. So I'm teaching grade 10s this year, grade 10 science and grade 10 personal finance. And with my students that I have in person, we start our class every day with an EduCalm classroom practice and then a quick discussion to check in, create that connection because I only see them every other day in person. So I really take that time to create that connection with my students, and that's been really filling my bucket. I've been feeling like through all the unknowns, at least I can do my best to connect with my students on a personal level and create those social, emotional connections and learning moments and bonds for my students, because the academic isn't completely a known path this year, but I can focus on the social emotional and do that to the best of my abilities. So that's where my head's been at. That's where my teaching practice has been at this year. I'd be curious to know what it looks like for you this year. 100%, if you would like to share with us how things are going in your classroom, please connect with us. I love hearing what's going on in other schools, divisions, different perspectives. It's just great to hear what's going on for different people, what their challenges are, and what their, little moments of successes are, so that we can learn from each other. So you can connect with us by going to our website, educalm.com, and just filling out the contact form and just send us a message about how things are going in your classroom. Or you can always connect with us on Instagram at educalm. That's EDUCALME. All right. So just like I do in my classroom, I just felt like I wanted to connect with you today. Take this moment of just checking in. How are you feeling? How am I feeling? And now I'm very excited to share this week's episode, which is a wonderful interview with Krista. Krista is an elementary student services teacher, and she practices mindfulness at home daily. She started the practice for herself, and then she started doing the practice with her 2 children. When she saw the benefits that this practice was having for her children and in her family, she wanted to start sharing it with her colleagues and also using mindfulness with the students that she works with. So she started using Educalm Classroom, and today she's going to share about how she practices mindfulness in her own life, how she does it at home, and what she's doing as a student services teacher in her school. Before we get into this wonderful interview, I'm super excited to share this week's sponsor, Time Timer. Time Timer is a visual timer that helps your students and you to manage time better. Instead of just having a clock that counts backwards for counting time, helping your students to stay on track with their activities, helping them to self-regulate, helping them to manage their work periods and the time that they have to work on certain things, instead of just having a timer up that counts backwards, Time Timer is this beautiful visual timer. So you set the time, and the time gives you a colored fraction type of thing on the timer. So it's kind of like a stopwatch that you move the color wheel to the time that you want to have on the timer. And then as time passes, the color disappears. So this visual aspect is so great for teaching time management, for helping students to truly understand what the time counting back actually means, because they might not quite understand those numbers counting back, but this visual timer is so useful. You definitely have to check this tool out. It is great in the classroom. It is just such a savior. And there's also a desktop app that has the time timer as well. So you can have these physical timers or a desktop timer, depending on whether you're in person with your students or that's a timer that you can be sharing through your screen if you're teaching at a distance or teaching remotely. So go to timetimer.com/educalm to check out this awesome tool. Again, it's timetimer.com/educalm. All right, friends, let's get into this week's interview with Krista Labossière. Hello there, Krista. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So we are really excited to have you on the show. You have been a user of Educalm Classroom, and you have a unique role in your school. So we're excited to share how you integrate SEL, social emotional learning, and mindfulness in the way that you work with students and other teachers. So can we start off? Can you just introduce yourself? Let us know, who is Krista?
Sure. My name is Krista. I am a student services teacher in Louis-Riel School Division, and I primarily help elementary students, so kindergarten to grade 2, and then next year, or I guess this coming year, will be students up to grade 4. And I have been practicing mindfulness at home for myself and my 2 boys for a number of years, and have just seen lots of benefits, and just wanted to share them with the students and the teachers that I work with.
Perfect. That's so cool. So talk to me a little bit about how you practice mindfulness with your kids. That's so awesome.
So I started with myself. I was finding that I was just having lots of anxiety about different things, about going back to work after being a mom and just, them growing up. And so I just started with breathing at different times in the day. Like if my alarm went off, I would just take a deep breath, or if something, a transition happened in the day. So I did that. And then I was noticing that if my kids had really big emotions, the best way for me to deal with them was to just take a deep breath in those moments. And then I noticed that they were needing a little bit of support in that as well. So just getting them to breathe when they were feeling a little bit frustrated or had a really big emotion, really excited or nervous about something. And then took it a little bit further and sort of found some books that we could read. So Sitting Still Like a Frog was a book that I originally had used because I loved that it came with an audio CD. So I could play a mindfulness thing for them before they went to bed or something like that. So just kind of finding different ways and using it at home in a variety of situations has been helpful.
That's great. I think the big takeaway from your story is how you started small and built your way up. And I think that lots of parents that want to integrate mindfulness into their home life with themselves or with their kids, and teachers that want to bring mindfulness into the classroom, we often feel like it's like this all or nothing thing. We have to jump into doing 20-minute guided audios every day. But really to make the practice stick, I think it's so important to have kind of small wins and see the value as you build on your practice. So like you said, just starting with a deep breath when your alarm goes off is an awesome first step, and slowly building on it based on what your life looks like and what your needs are at the time. That's so great. So
yeah, for sure.
Tell me now, what is your role in your school where you work?
So I'm a student services teacher. Last year I was student services K-2, and this coming year I will probably be student services grades 3 and 4 and early literacy reading support.
Awesome. So for those that might be unfamiliar with what a student services teacher does, can you explain kind of what your role is in the school as a student services teacher, and even maybe kind of what your day-to-day looks like?
Sure. So I help teachers and students with a variety of different things. Mainly, I help students that need a little bit of extra support. So generally, that's students who need either academic support or some behavior support. And that comes in a variety of ways, in the sense that I will do work in the classrooms with teachers, or I will do some pull-out where kids will come to my room, either individually or in small groups. I also help teachers create a variety of resources for different things. The biggest thing that comes to mind would be visuals for students. So whether it be a visual schedule for their board, or an individual visual schedule for their desk, or a ring of directives that reinforce what teachers are asking of students throughout the day, those kinds of things.
Right. So you're kind of the catch-all for anyone that needs extra support. You're there to solve the problem, whatever the problem is.
Yes, I definitely try. Yep.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you use social emotional learning and mindfulness with a variety of students and classrooms in a different way. What does that look like in your role? How are you integrating social emotional learning into what you do with your students and what you do with the teachers you support?
So I was thinking about this, and we use social emotional learning in a variety of things. And it was interesting because when I first decided that I would try and be very specific in teaching mindfulness practices, we had already started doing some of them. So we had already done the zones of regulation or the social thinking curriculum. We had already tried Project 11. Lots of the teachers in our school use responsive classroom, and they do movement breaks. And so they were already doing lots of things. And we had the Mind Up curriculum, but no one had really used it. And I think it was because it was such a prescriptive program. I had talked to the teachers that I worked with, and we just decided we were going to start off with some audios about just breathing, because that fit really well with the zones and helping kids regulate when they get into a color that isn't the green zone, which is ready for learning. And so I feel like it's helped students and teachers respond to situations rather than reacting, because mindfulness gives them a moment to ground themselves. And I really wanted kids to be able to see that they were in control of themselves. So that's sort of where we started. And then I partnered with a teacher in grade 1-2 to do the EduCalm lessons with her students. And so we had picked a time right after lunch during her quiet time. So it was a natural break in the day where kids were already in a state of relaxation. And they had 15 minutes to do their own thing, whether it be reading or drawing or just sitting, having a moment for themselves. And then we would do the guided audios from EduCalm. And it was interesting because when we first started, the kids were really wiggly and they were really like 1 minute was a really hard time. And one of the things that I took away was that I didn't correct any of the behavior because mindfulness happens to people in a variety of ways. And it was interesting. By the end, kids were like, are we going to do mindfulness today? Like they were super pumped about it. So I think it was just finding natural ways to integrate it into what teachers were already doing to supplement their teaching in their classroom.
I love that. And I think the biggest thing with social emotional learning and mindfulness is when it feels too big or when you feel like, how am I going to fit this into my schedule? So I love your approach of finding a time that it already makes sense to do it, that it kind of integrates into a practice they're already doing or kind of that downtime that's already part of the day so that it doesn't feel like such a big change and a big kind of mountain to climb to be able to integrate that. That's really cool. So you did these guided audios in a classroom with the students. What are some of the things that you saw with this group of students throughout the school year with doing this mindfulness practice?
I definitely saw that in the beginning, kids were kind of like they had heard of 5-finger breathing and we had, talked about how it related to the zones, but I don't think they realized how they could use it outside of the mindfulness times, like with me or with their classroom teacher. And it was really interesting because we had talked, so I sort of jumped around a little bit within EduCalm to find different audios that kind of matched where they were at or what they kind of needed in the day. And one little guy, I will never forget when the classroom teacher came in and had said he was outside on the playground really trying to take a deep breath with his fingers, like going over each of them so that he could calm himself down because he was having a bit of a recess issue. So seeing those takeaways was, really great. And then just hearing the kids when they would say, hey, Mrs. L, I found this mindfulness book in the library. Do you think we could read it today? And so then I'd go into the classroom and then read it, or, they would read it with their classroom teacher and then tell me all about what they read. And, seeing how they kind of found different ways to integrate mindfulness for themselves was really great. In the beginning, when we first started, they were really busy. You could feel the energy was quite high. And then as we did it more regular, you could see they would settle in as soon as I would walk in the room and they were ready for mindfulness. And you could actually feel the energy kind of just relax a little bit. And I was really grateful for the teacher because she was so good about saying I actually need mindfulness today. So do you think you could come in and do it? Right? For herself. So not only was it benefiting her students, but it was also for me, it was a nice break in my day to ground myself intentionally, but it was also for her to be able to say, I think I need this today. Right. And hearing her kids, having her kids hear her say that, I think was really beneficial also.
That's so great. And for many of us teachers, we recognize that when we're having a bad day, things in our classroom go poorly, right? So really when you recognize that, hey, wow, when I manage my own emotions, it really affects my students and helps them to manage their emotions. And when I'm more focused, they're more focused, that there's kind of this reciprocal feeling, this energy that gets transferred between us and our students and vice versa. So when we can all take that moment of calm to practice mindfulness, we can all get back to a state where we're ready to learn and ready to teach and ready to do our best. So that's really fun. I always love hearing how teachers use the program in their own way and how many students, like you said, are they don't get it at first. They're like, okay, this is like a thing that we're doing, but it's fun to see that over time, as time goes on, they start to recognize like, oh, I actually feel really good when I do this mindfulness practice. And oh, I am more focused, or I'm learning strategies that help me to manage my emotions, and they start enjoying it over time. So I think that's an important takeaway for teachers that might be new to integrating mindfulness and social emotional learning practices in the classroom, that it's okay if it doesn't work at first, right? If you don't see the results and the excitement from the students about it right away, that's totally normal. It's going to take them some time to warm up to it. And it's the experience of the practice that will teach them over time that it's useful to them, rather than us telling them that it's useful to them, right?
For sure. Yeah. And it was a nice starting point, because then we had the opportunity to do yoga at our school this year as well. And so some of the students that had been a part of the mindfulness practices, mindfulness moments, as we called them, got to also do yoga. And it was really interesting to see how some of the kids really gravitated towards wanting to do the yoga in addition to the mindfulness, and then them looking forward in a different way to those mindfulness moments.
That's so great. So as you're talking about mindfulness moments, I'm remembering a story you had told where your students started calling them kindful moments.
Yes. And it was really great, because the little guy that had said it had come up to me and said, "Are we going to do a kindfulness moment today?" And I was like, "No." But I reflected on that, and I just thought, you're right, because it is a moment where we get to be kind to ourselves about how we're feeling and, what's going on for us. And then also taking those moments just to notice what's happening to the people around us. And so the teacher and I did end up calling them kindful moments for the rest of the year, just because it was so fitting. But
I love that.
Yeah,
that is so
it was
perfect.
such a great moment.
That's so great. So my next question is, you said you work one-on-one with students, you work in small groups with students. Do you integrate any mindfulness or social emotional learning during those one-on-one or small group times?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess it would depend on why the student is coming to my room to have that time with me. But for the most part, it would be daily check-ins with students. So we would sort of have a check-in depending on what they needed throughout the day, or at the start of the day. We would kind of talk about, how they were feeling. We would kind of problem solve different ways that they could, deal with different things even at recess. So some strategies that they could do. So we would practice some of those mindful things. Generally, deep breathing was probably the best thing that we could do. And I had a variety of the posters up from EduCom in my classroom, so kids could access them at a regular moment in the day, even if I wasn't there. But I always had calming music playing in my room if that was not a distraction to some students. The lights were often dim, so it was a bit of a relaxing space. And then it was just an opportunity for us to just talk about where they were at and kind of what they needed to help them problem solve, kind of like, this is how I'm feeling right now, and this is what I can do to help manage that emotion. So definitely that, like, managing emotions is probably the biggest thing that we kind of deal with, or that I deal with. And then just the breathing kind of strategies to help bring them back down, so that they would be in a state to even be able to talk about how they're feeling, or what they might need, or how they could solve something that maybe happened.
Right. That's awesome. And so what are some of the kind of progressions or progress that you kind of saw in those students that you work one-on-one with and small groups with? I'm sure you must have students with a wide variety of learning profiles and needs. Is there anything that kind of stood out with you that when you really started integrating these lots of different ways that you integrate mindfulness, that sort of how did that help them throughout the year, whether that's just social emotional, or did that affect their academics, or what were you seeing throughout the course of the year?
So I'd say social emotional was probably the biggest thing that I noticed, because I was probably really focused on that, and just being able to see them, if they were in the red zone, like really, really frustrated with something, their time to get back to the green zone or ready to learn lessened quite significantly over the course of the year, because they had the tools to help them regulate that emotion so that they could come back down. With that being said, when they were able to be in the green zone on a more consistent basis, I felt like students, and in talking to the teacher that I partnered with, they were more ready to learn. And when I would use some of the like growth mindset or the gratitude audios, it blended with some of the things that they were doing so that they could be kind to other people in different learning capacities, or, be gentle with themselves if they were learning a new concept in, I'm going to say math or science, but they didn't necessarily know how to do it, but that they would learn, so that they were kind of, lessen the anxiety of some of those things. So definitely saw an increase in both social emotional capacity, but also academic learning also.
Yeah. And those two are so tied together, right? I think a lot of times at least when I first started teaching, I kind of saw those as two separate things, because we weren't necessarily taught, or we didn't experience how those were connected. But more and more throughout my teaching career, I'm just seeing, and through the research and everything that's out there around social emotional learning, social emotional learning is so tied to academics. And when we're building those social emotional skills, like you said, we're able to come out of the red zone faster, or we're able to spend more time in the green zone because we have strategies to manage our emotions. And when we have strategies to manage our emotions, our brain and our body are more available and ready to learn more consistently. So, you can't really have one without the other. If we're trying to just push the academics and we aren't managing the emotions first, the brain just isn't ready to learn and we're not really moving. So having those two work together is so important for student success.
Yes, I was just going to add, as I was thinking about going back to school after all of the things that have happened with remote learning, or even during remote learning, it was managing children's anxieties about the things that were going on and the things that were different. And until, we kind of helped regulate those feelings, we can't do any sort of learning. So putting that at the forefront, I think, has been really important for me always, but more so now. I think I see it, and even in my own kids, right, their thoughts about going back to school. But I work with a really great group of teachers, and they've already been thinking about different ways that they can greet the students that's, welcoming, but not, oh, I can't be close to you, right? So just even having that open dialogue, I think, is really important, and having people to share ideas with about things that they're doing in their classrooms has been really important and vital, really, to integrating mindfulness into the classroom that I'm working with specifically, or the kids that I work with specifically, but then also seeing it filter out in different ways into different classrooms.
Yeah, that's so cool. So why don't we have a little chat now about distance, like remote learning? This school year is going to be different for everyone. Every area is doing things differently. We really have to be on our toes as teachers to be prepared for all situations. And we don't know what works yet, right? Like, this is so new. There's no research out there. There isn't that much around best practices around remote learning, or kind of whatever blend version of remote learning that we're doing. So I've been really enjoying just chatting with teachers about like what they noticed that worked and what didn't work in this past year, and kind of what are some ideas you have for this year. So when you were starting remote learning last year, can you talk a little bit about how your role changed, or what your role was as we shifted to remote learning, and then kind of how you integrated SEL or mindfulness in your own way? Or if you did, maybe you didn't even get to that yet, or maybe you tried and it didn't work. So there's no right answer here. You don't have to be the expert. It's just fun to kind of hear different perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. So when we first shifted to remote learning, I felt like my role was really just checking in on teachers and also on some students. So maybe students that couldn't necessarily get a hold of or communicate with the teacher for whatever reason. I would be an extra, check-in for them. I would say that probably in the beginning, my initial role for myself that I kind of put on myself was just checking in with teachers, because we didn't have that constant connection or communication, where you'd see someone in the hallway, or you'd be able to, just walk into their classroom and kind of get the energy and feel like, oh, what they might need, or, just like a how are you, and give them an opportunity to just cry or vent or get a hug or whatever they might need, right? So I sort of spent my time doing that, checking in on them. Initially, I had wanted to start like a mindfulness moment, on a lunch hour or at a time in the day when there might be a break. But with teacher schedules being so different, it was really hard to find that common time. Whereas at school, we had implemented, not, as regularly as maybe we could have or something, but we had a thoughtful Thursday. So a small group of us would get together and just, experience a mindfulness moment together. And then we'd go back and do our days. So I felt like that was probably the most important part as we first started remote learning, because everyone's anxiety was, including my own, was really high. So just trying to find ways to keep it in check and, having those connections with people. And then as we rolled into got into a groove and rolled out into remote learning, I spent a lot of time doing some small group work with kids, mostly about reading. And, I partnered with some teachers and facilitated some co-teaching opportunities with them, with some individual students. And then we had the opportunity last year from you guys was to give parents access to the EduCom lessons or practices. And parents found that really lovely because they were able to do some of those things that their kids had talked about that they had done at school with us at home and share that with their families. And so I think it was a really nice conversation to have with parents when you'd ask the student like, oh, what did you do today? Or, how did you find that? And just having those kind of reflecting questions because you couldn't participate in the practice with them. But yeah, it was really nice. I think it was more, the verbal check-in was probably the way we dealt with that a little bit. And then just talking to parents to see how they were doing and what kind of resources they might need in a different way that we would have normally at school.
Right. That's great. So what were some of the challenges with using, say, the EduCom Classroom program with parents, like giving them, here's the access, go ahead and do it? Like, were you finding that buy-in was difficult, or were you just okay with the fact that some parents are doing it, some parents probably aren't? What was that like?
It was really hard to let go of the fact that we wouldn't have that time together, every day at 12:45 or whatever it might be, right? I think it was more like 1:00. But it was validating to hear that some parents really did find value in the program. And so that, it is something that we need to keep going. I had to let go of the fact that some parents it was another thing for them to log into and another thing for them to do while they were already trying to navigate, having their kids home and getting them to do this on Teams or this activity for their teacher. So I just kind of let it go. But kids even did say that they missed that time together. So it was nice to hear that kids found that time really beneficial and a way of connecting together. And so I think that's moving into next year, if remote learning does happen again, would be trying to find that common time where, if a teacher was having a weekly meeting, maybe we could do a mindfulness moment woven into that. Or I could set up my own meeting where, we're going to meet at 1:00 on this day. Whoever makes it, we'll participate in something together. And then, you can go about your day. So. Right.
That's great. Yeah. We got a lot of feedback from teachers that were using EduCom Classroom for remote learning and got a variety of, ideas of what they were doing, what was working, what wasn't working. And we definitely found that doing the most people that had the most success with the program or felt like they were having the most success with remote learning was by doing it over a meeting. And it was either weekly or daily. It really depended on how their school set up their schedules for having meetings with the students. But so I'll be curious to hear if we do go back to remote learning, whether that different style works for you. I know we have another school that the whole school does the program, and they're planning on doing it as part of their daily meetings. So it'll be fun to see how that helps students to navigate the stress of not knowing what's coming, right? And even as us teachers, some of us are going back to school, some of us aren't, but none of us know what the whole year is going to look like. So if it's worrisome for us, I can't imagine what it would be like for kids that are trying to, navigate all these big changes to routine.
Right.
Yeah. So what is one thing that you're looking forward to this year?
Well, I'm looking forward to working with a new group of teachers because I'll be working as student services grades 3 to 4. But then I'm also looking forward to the challenge of doing some literacy support, provided that our, society allows for that to happen going back to school. But then also just finding ways to integrate mindfulness for myself throughout the day, and then finding ways to meaningfully doing that for students, because I have my own anxiety about going back to school, and I don't want to just push it aside. I want to acknowledge the fact that it's there, and then kind of deal with it and then move on. So just making that really real for kids, I think, is going to be good. But I'm excited for being able to see all of the people that I haven't seen in a really long time. And just kind of getting back into the groove of being back at school. I've really missed, being my teacher in my traditional teacher way, but will take on whatever comes my way this year.
That's wonderful. I love your kind of plan of caring for yourself first, making sure that you're acknowledging, accepting, and then managing your own emotions, and then going from there. I think that's the best thing we can do as teachers, and best thing for us and best thing for our students is to really take self-care seriously and know that in order to be our best selves and to be great models of resilience to our students, that we really have to do whatever practice makes us feel good and helps us to manage our emotions, whether that's, doing a good workout or going for a walk or spending time in nature or journaling or, taking certain days to sleep in and completely unplug, whatever that looks like for you. Taking that time to care for yourself is so, so important, so that then you have the energy and the skills that you can share and model to your students of how to care for yourself when you're experiencing big emotions.
Oh, I agree 100%. When you were saying the things, that, help yourself throughout the day, it makes me think of, I have a closet in my room, and it's always stocked with some of the things that the teachers really like. So if they need to pick me up through the day, they know they can just come help myself, with like pudding cups or, little bags of cookies or chocolates or, Coke Zero. And it's just another thing that they can do. They can't leave, but at least they can come have a little, yummy treat, and then off they go back. So
I love that. That is so great. I mean, food is always so helpful for shifting your mood, especially chocolate, in my opinion.
Yes, there was lots of that in my closet.
Yes. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Is there any last words you'd like to share with teachers that are listening? Anything at all, whatever comes to mind.
Well, I was thinking I am grateful for the people that I work with and for them trusting me to come in and try these different things with their students, but also to be really gentle with yourself if things are not going well. Because there are some days where I'm like, this is not the way it's supposed to be, or, I shouldn't have reacted in that way. And I'm trying to teach my kids to be mindful, and here I am not being mindful myself. But just being really gentle and really starting small. And it's not going to work the first time, probably the way you expect it to, but that's okay, because you just have to start small. So
that's great advice, especially for those first starting out. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing your time. And I wish you all the best going into this new school year.
Well, thank you. And I wish you all the best also.
Thank you. Well, I hope this conversation gave you the opportunity to imagine how you can start to very slowly integrate mindfulness into your own life, into your family life, and into your classroom and your interactions with your students, whether you're a classroom teacher or a student services teacher or whatever your role is. Maybe you walked away today with one idea that you can move forward with for how to bring a little bit of mindfulness, a little mindful moment into your day to help you manage the ups and downs that are coming with this different school year. So if you're feeling ready to dip your toes into bringing mindfulness into your classroom in a structured way with ready-to-use audios that are available in both English and in French, and includes some printables that you can integrate if you would like, includes lesson plans if you'd like a deeper understanding of what's coming up in the audios, but it can be as simple as pressing play and listening to the audio with your students for 5 minutes. If that sounds good to you, you can get our resource for free by going to educalm.com and signing up for the free trial. So the free trial never expires. It gives you trainings for how to use our program with information on what mindfulness is. We give you information and printable and editable templates for how to talk about this with your administrators, how to talk about it with parents. Really anything you could possibly need to get started with this program, we give to you for free in our free trial, plus the first unit of our full year mindfulness and social emotional learning program. So you get Introduction to Mindfulness, which comes with 10 ready to use audios. So you just have to press play and you can enjoy a mindful minute or 2 or 5 with your students. So go check it out at www.educalm.com. So that's spelled EDUCALME. All right. If there's one takeaway I hope that you take with you today, it's to be kind to yourself, give yourself compassion, and to just take it one day at a time. Take care. Have a wonderful week.